in to this special edition podcast from the Two Bucks Sports Pod. We just couldn't get enough of our audience. Didn't have anything else to do this Friday afternoon, and so we decided to look each other's ugly mugs and talk about the college football playoffs, among other things. So, welcome in, Uncle Buck. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Welcome, Rusty. This is fun. I like the special edition show. I do take exception to saying ugly mugs because at least half my screen is beautiful right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, other half. so, yeah. So, Rusty, when we talked last on Wednesday night, we talked about all of our bowl games, and while I would like to say it was intentional that we left out the biggest two bowl games left right now on the schedule, um, I'd be lying if I said it was on purpose. I blame our producer Rusty because he had the lineup of games,
Mm.
but upon listening to our show on Thursday, I was like, "Hey, we never talked about the big ones," and so lucky us because we get to do another podcast real quick and talk about them more in depth. And since then, we can also recap what has happened last night.
Mm. One good and one very good. So we
Yeah.
had some good happenings here in the last couple of nights in the sports world. That's for sure.
Oh, what's the good thing?
Well, the good thing is the Memphis Grizzlies got back on their winning ways.
Okay, so are you saying that Ole Miss losing is not good?
No, I was going to say the better thing is Ole Miss getting shellacked.
Yes. So the Grizzlies won big
Mhm.
on uh that was Wednesday night. I'll be honest with you, being off on a Friday due to the holiday weekend has really
Mhm.
messed up what day I'm on because all day
Yeah,
I've thought it's Saturday, and it doesn't help any that there's football on that I've been watching today, and
sure.
so it truly feels like a Saturday. And so yeah, so Wednesday night the Grizzlies got a big win on the
Thursday
road.
night, it was last night.
Was last night. Okay.
Hmm.
Thursday night, the Grizzlies got a big win on the road against
Hmm.
Toronto, a reeling
Hmm.
Toronto team. I mean, they've lost,
Hmm.
I believe it was five of the last six going into it. They were one of the
Hmm.
teams that uh, would say would be on the bubble for the Eastern Conference. They've had a superstar year so far from Pascal Siakam.
Hmm.
He's truly been unbelievable. Uh, just the rest of the team has not been as good as they need it to be. And so they started off hot, but they've come crashing down. Uh, but what good teams do, and what we believe that Memphis is a good team. What good teams do is they beat the teams they should beat, and they beat them
Hmm.
convincingly, and that's what
Right.
happened.
Hmm.
Um, Ja was great. Dylan Brooks may have had his best game of the year.
Hmm.
Just incredible on both ends of the floor,
Hmm.
including Dylan the villain
Oh man.
getting causing a tech for Pascal Siakam for because he just had enough, So gotten a little pushing match with Pascal Siakam, and
Yeah.
so it's good. It was a double whammy because Pascal got a technical, and then the coach got a technical for defending him. So.
Right.
And then, of course, Dylan's taking the free throws, hits both of them, and gets the laugh and
Yeah.
increases his villainous ways.
Right. Yeah, man. Dylan Brooks' effect was in full force last night. He was living rent free, and Siakam still had a good game. It's just it wasn't his normal game, and Dylan threw him off. Had a great night. I think he finished with 25 points. Was relentless on the defensive end. What was really good to see too, Drew, was Desmond Bain and Jaren Jackson Jr. as well. They looked more like their old
Absolutely.
selves. Desmond was moving really well. His shots were starting to fall. He did foul out kind of early, but like just seeing him be aggressive was phenomenal. Sight for sore eyes. Tripp had a good game last night. Had some great assists. That behind the back pass he had. Like he looked the part that we've been expecting him to be all year. We had two double doubles last night from Steven Adams and John Morant. All for the first time. I thought this was an interesting stat. For the first time since December the 9th, all five Grizzly starters scored in double figures. So we found some offensive rhythm.
And that's big considering this team is not they have a superstar, which is something that the Grizzlies have never had, but they're still their biggest strength is not John Morant, but it's their depth and their
Mm-hmm.
spacing and
Yeah.
being able to play that offensive system as a team. And so if the team outside of Ja
Yeah.
is not hitting, then the
Yeah.
team just no matter what kind of stat line Ja puts up,
Mhm.
it doesn't translate to wins, like you said on the last pod, with them being 5-7 in games where Ja scores over 30 points, and Ja didn't score over 30 in this game. So,
Right.
it doesn't put a win in that column, but it does go to show when all 5 starters scoring double figures, you couple that with Ja, who set a career high for assists yesterday.
Right.
I mean, the team's hard to beat.
Yeah, and I think the biggest telling stat last night that we were playing the basketball that we wanted to play was because the Desmond shot was falling. Zaire hit a couple threes. Conchar had a great game off the bench last night, shooting a three.
And he missed the incredible putback dunk.
Man.
And the left-handed putback.
Yeah.
And I was sitting here, my whole family is gathered around the TV watching it as if it's 1940s, and we're listening to the radio, the Grand Ole Opry on the radio. That's how the setup we had watching the Grizzlies last night. And I got out of my seat when I saw him jump, and I just, oh man, he missed it. And my wife, God love her, she's like, oh, that was still pretty cool. And I was like, nope, gotta dunk it. If you got applause for every missed dunk, Ja Morant would be Michael Jordan level.
Absolutely. But with them coming back, the biggest telling factor last night was we had 70 points in the paint last night. We out rebounded Toronto 53-21. We had 37 assists last night. So we really got back to playing our kind of basketball. And it's because we could spread the floor out and the lane wasn't so congested.
And we can spread the floor out, which is great offensively, but defensively, we do our best performances are against teams that want to play small.
Yeah.
And when Steven Adams can dominate on the boards offensively and defensively, you can kind of hide Jaren on the wing player and let him kind of play free safety defensively. You can do that when you've got Steven Adams in the game. Yeah. He is in my opinion, the MVP of the season so far. We could have a whole show on what I think about Steven Adams. He's always been a big lug, a hard screen setter, and a good rebounder. But if you dive into what he does for Ja in particular, setting that screen, because many times he's setting the screen up high, and then he's screening hit the second guy when Ja kind of puts the brakes on. Ja's got that famous move where he will go off the screen, sit down, dribble in between his legs, and wait for Steven Adams to go around to screen the next guy to get the layup. It's incredible. And it's something, I mean, most of my basketball experience is watching the Grizzlies, so I don't know if that's happened a lot, but I've never seen it before.
Yeah, they're a great 1-2 punch, man. And Steven looked the part last night. He had 17 rebounds. He had he had 17 that he grabbed, and then he had probably another 8 or 10 that he tapped out to somebody else and kept plays alive. Like, he looked good last night.
That tip at midcourt.
He won every time.
Right. And especially the one where he tipped it out almost to the 3-point line and hit a Ja in motion. It was incredible.
Yeah, we got that little clutch reverse dunk, and it looked good. But yeah, if you want a little deeper dive on it, it's on our blog. Don't forget about that. The number 2 bucksportspod.com. Check that out. Deep dive into the game and the stats from last night, and then we get ready. We got a back-to-back this weekend. We play New Year's Eve at home against the New Orleans Pelicans in a big-time division game. We play
first Sunday. Place in the West, New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah, and then we play Sunday against the up-and-coming Kings at home. Drew, this is the first time we are setting a franchise record this year for nationally televised games. We've got about 15 on the books right now, which if you've been following along, you can see my blog about the old Grizz. Like, if you'd have told Little Rusty in 2002 that the Grizz were going to be on national TV 15 times, I'd have never believed you, because like there was nobody in the stands and all that. But it's just a product of a great front office, getting good players, the development from the grit grind era. It's just really cool to see us getting recognized as a premier basketball team.
And it's not just being a good basketball team. That's what one thing that's important to note here, because the Grizzlies during the grit and grind era had good basketball teams.
Right.
But the brand of basketball that the Grizzlies play is fun.
Yeah.
The grit and grind Grizzlies were playing 1980s basketball in 2011 to 2015. Yeah. They were playing a brand of basketball that was not aesthetically pleasing. It worked. And it was a brand of basketball that the only people that liked watching it were Grizzlies fans.
Exactly.
So Ja Morant and the that motion offense that they run, coupled with just anytime you turn John Morant on the TV, he's going to impress
Yeah.
you. And
It's must
so,
see TV, and we haven't had that yet.
and it's not like Dame Lillard, who, he's going to put up points and he's going to score from. It's You're impressed by his scoring, his passing.
Mhm.
I mean, you like to watch the attitude, or I do.
Yeah.
And
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah, he's just must see TV.
Yeah, when they called that timeout late in the game, and after he hit that big three and he gritty to the sideline, it's like that's what we need. That's
in
what
it
we need.
in his jaw ones.
Yeah, man. And the new pink, man. I like the pink. I like the pink
Yeah.
last night.
Uh, I've always said, and I stand by it. As soon as they're on sale, I will be in the lottery or however they determine who gets them. I
Yep.
will get a pair, and I don't care what size it are because they're going to go in a case.
Yeah.
However, I would buy a second pair if they came in something other than pink or purple.
I'm
Because
waiting on them.
I'd wear those.
I'm telling you, I'm waiting on them to drop those Vancouver colors with that teal and black. If those come out, dude,
Yeah,
I'm buying them
yes,
all. I'll
yes.
buy 3 number 13s, put them up in the house, and wear one.
I'll just make one color for the rednecks of Mississippi who primarily wear Carhartt,
Yeah, that's right.
So, give me one color, okay? That's all I'm asking for.
Well,
All right,
yeah, man, great talking about the Grizz, but we got a purpose here. First, we need to touch on one other great happening this week. Talking about college football, we'll shift gears. And Drew, what happened to your Rebs the other night, man?
well, where to start? So, what I've told you, I've been consistent about this, and I'm glad I got ahead of it on the front end. But what bowls are come down to is one team wants to be there and one team don't care. And unfortunately for Ole Miss, I even Lane treated it as an exhibition, and that bothers me a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm okay with the team coming out flat because this is not the goals that even you thought. This was not a playing in the Texas Bowl was not a goal that you had midseason. You thought you were past this, and to rally up for what is, and I stand by it. It's a meaningless game. It is an exhibition.
Mhm.
What's fun about it is it's in a NFL stadium and it's against a team that typically you don't play, but heck, Ole Miss has played Texas Tech in every sport every year it seems like, and so it's a team that even for a bowl games you're familiar with.
Mhm.
And so as a fan, I wasn't just over the moon about it. I wasn't counting down the minutes until kickoff, um, and that seemed like the team felt the same way about it.
Mhm.
And Lane, he went for it on every fourth down, and I love it. And I had this argument with guys I worked with yesterday who are primarily Mississippi State fans, but they just you can't do it. You can't do it. Can't do it. And my problem is not with going for it, with the exception of the time he went for it on 4th and 1 from our own 11-yard line. Like
Yeah.
that's not respecting the game as
It's
the
on
play.
brand, but
Yeah.
it's on brand.
Yeah, that it is an extreme, but my problem is not with going for it because on every situation you tout your team as a team that can run the ball extremely well.
Mhm.
But and you got it to 4th and 1, but at the same time, our offensive line was getting manhandled. Our defensive line got manhandled. In the trenches, we lost that game convincingly on every facet of it. And so to continually run a zone read from the shotgun on 4th and 1 in between the tackles and to lose yardage every time, about the 4th or 5th time that they went for it on 4th down and didn't get it, I
Mhm.
just threw my hands up because I know what analytics say, and you can say analytics, and I believe in analytics. I believe
Mhm.
analytics are valid, but to continually do the same thing and blame it on analytics like that after the uh, after the game at the press conference, Lane said, that's what the book told us to do, the analytics books, and I was like, okay, well, there's also a feel to this
Yeah.
that that's the if it was surely analytics, then let's just play this on a video game and let's let the book call the plays.
Mhm.
But you've got that feel for the game, and you've got to know, like, man, like I know Quinshawn Judkins is elite running back, and he was the best running back in the SEC this year. But you're seeing the same game I'm seeing. And if you see your offensive line getting bullied all game, let's do something different.
Yeah.
You know, and Ole Miss had no business being in that game in the first half. At halftime, it was respectable, and the game wasn't. The you watched it; it was an ugly game, and Texas Tech just kept turning the ball back over to us. Like they played well offensively, they just couldn't keep from turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
And Ole Miss defense, I believe they gave up 42 points, but they played well considering the fact that we gave the ball short field all day. I meant to look it up, and forgive me for not, but I know that there had to be at least 10 turnovers in that game by Ole Miss if you consider a miss, a non-conversion on fourth down, a turnover, because that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
One of the picks was a fourth down pick by Jackson Dart, basically an arm punt, the old Phillip Rivers special, to where you just threw a deep route into double coverage, and if the guy caught it, fine. If he picked it, it's better than incomplete. You know, the defender should just batted it down, and they'd have got it on their own. I mean, on Ole Miss's 30-yard line, but he picked it, and so I will say this though. I know that it did not go well, and I believe the game plan was bad. I believe the play calling was bad in crucial situations. But Jackson Dart has impressed me with his toughness. That boy, he is a sophomore. It's his first year as a starting quarterback, to have the whole team. And there's been throws that he's missed. There's been some growing pains with that because just to call him a transfer to come in from USC, should have never been billed as a savior, not at this time. But I see a foundation on that guy because he was banged up yesterday, and he's been banged up throughout the season with different nagging injuries. But man, he has shown the stones to be able to pick himself back up and to lead a team. Now, hopefully we can fix the decision making, but there's some qualities, some Matt Corral-esque qualities to just the mental toughness of the guy. If you can just figure out the 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 decision making and being on time, he's got a future here if he can put that together. And so I'm hoping you're going to need to get some depth behind him because, like I said last time, you don't have a second string quarterback right now.
Right.
But I can see something with him. He's got character about him. He's got the gumption to carry the load. We just need to kind of fix, and hopefully an off season in the program, in the playbook, can fix that. But I can see promise in him. But overwhelmingly, I left that game was just I turned it off. If I'm being honest, there's nothing worse than staying up late to watch a game of your favorite team and them just get hosed. You know, just like the Grizzlies playing a 9:30 game out west. Like you just don't have much slack in my book. Like make it worth my while. And when they went down 3 scores in the fourth quarter, I was done. And so they ended up making it, I think, a 2-score game. It was 42-25, so 17. So there was still a 3-score game, but it was just bad, and it was bad on preparation. It was a bad game plan, and it was on Lane. I believe that it needed to be. I believe that it needed to be taken a little bit more seriously, and maybe it was, and it just got out of hand. But who knows? I think it probably snowballed on him more than that was the game plan. You miss the first 3 and you get desperate because you're down by 2 scores at that point.
Right.
But I just you gotta do a little bit better.
Yeah, I think it starts with the head coach too. You know, there was right before the game. There was some circulating things on Twitter that he was out liking some sorority girls' tweets and pictures from the stands, and he seemed a little bit distracted, and so it probably bled over into the game plan and execution at the beginning of the game.
That's just wrong. That dude has been an upstanding citizen. He's kept his nose clean.
Sure.
Let's not just play into the stereotype just so you can find a way to hate on the guy because you cheer for the other team.
I'm just reporting facts. That's all I'm saying.
It's Ole Miss. There are pretty girls everywhere, and if he cared that much about it, then we'd be 0-12 this year because there's enough to look at there.
Sure.
if he wanted to.
Just a simple observation, all it was. But
simple observation from a hater who's looking for a reason to hate.
we'll
We'll never be able to cover Ole Miss without you chirping in. They could cure cancer, and you'd be like, yeah, you know what? I don't trust it.
That might be fair, but we'll see what happens that day comes.
It's absolutely fair.
I did. I gave him a shout out on Twitter, and I props for the helmet sticker. It was a really cool.
Yeah, you gave him a shout out for doing something to honor a Mississippi State coach.
Yeah.
You would, yeah. If that was a Alabama coach that they were commemorating, you would have been like, oh, that's soft. You're just playing you're just placating. Like
maybe we'll see.
It's got to have a Mississippi State angle for you to give them a credit.
I'll tell you what. I'll see if I can come up with one nice thing to say about Ole Miss before the next podcast.
Good Lord, you're going to be working all week.
That's going to take a while.
Yeah. All right. So the reason why I did not want to have a special podcast to dissect the Ole Miss Texas Bowl because I've said too much already. I've spent more time thinking about it than what I want to. The reason why we did have this special edition of the Two Buck Sports Podcast is to dissect the two playoff games that happen tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night.
Absolutely.
And these games, unlike the Ole Miss Texas Tech game, are games that everybody can rally around and get excited about.
Yeah. Absolutely. These are the games that count, even though you've got some players, and I still don't understand this, from Ohio State that are opting out and decided to forego the semifinal game for the draft. That's their business. These are monster games. And Drew, we were talking about it off air. Like, I think these are going to be some pretty good games. The Georgia-Ohio State game, I'm not as convinced. I just really think Georgia's a much better team, especially with the last product we have from Ohio State in that Michigan game, getting kind of run over through and around by Michigan. But I'm really excited about the Michigan TCU game. This smells or feels like one of those, like those non-Power 5 games from back in the day, like the Boise State, the Fresno State. Feels more like that than the Hawaii team that got just mollywopped by Georgia. This feels like a team that could give Michigan a game, if not beat them.
Well, and let's give TCU a little bit more credit than that. They are in a Power 5.
Sure. No. Yeah, I hear you.
Now.
I hear you.
And they did win out. They lost. They went 12-0 in a Power 5 conference. Now, we can debate the validity to the Big 12, but there's still some good teams there.
And that's not the point I was trying to make. The point is just that they're an underdog and they're not your traditional blue blood. They're not your traditional. This is, to me, one of the first like non-traditional. This is like a mid. Not again.
They're not Cincinnati from last year.
Right, but this feels like the first of those teams that has a chance, is what I'm trying to say. Like, This feels like the first. They're not going to be the Hawaii team that got there and got destroyed by Georgia. This feels like a Boise State team that's kind of overlooked. They don't necessarily, quote unquote, belong there, but they can make an impact and beat Michigan.
Right, they're not Cincinnati. If I had to, they feel kind of like when Michigan State came in that first year of the playoff in 2014 and played Alabama. Now I'm hoping that the result is not the same. Can you remember a time in which 2 of the 4 teams of the playoff are coming off losses?
Yeah. That's strange.
I'm so glad, and we talked about this when it came out, I'm so glad that TCU got in because I believe they deserve to get in. Mm-hmm. Ohio State has some thank you letters that they should have sent out by now.
Absolutely.
Because they did take a lot of help. It took South Carolina beating Tennessee. Mm-hmm. It took USC getting beat by Utah. They've got some thank you letters to send out. But let's sit down on each of these, and we'll start with the first game that comes on tomorrow, and that is TCU versus Michigan. Mm-hmm. This is the game, as we were speaking off air, this is the game I'm most excited about because it is the game in which I have a clear team that I'm rooting for. And when it comes to sports, I'm not a gambler. I'm not a sports gambler. It's not legal in the state of Mississippi as of right now, so that's why. Yeah. And so sure. I know you can always find a bet. You can always find a rooting interest based on who you bet on, typically.
Sure.
And that's what makes a lot of these games fun. If Ole Miss is not playing, you find a side you want to bet, and then you cheer like heck for that team. And so I don't have a betting interest in this game, but TCU is the only team that I can look at and be like, yeah, I want them to win.
Sure.
And uh, I don't cheer for Michigan. I don't really hate Michigan. Michigan kind of feels like uh, Nebraska. You know how you always heard about the lore of Michigan, but now I feel like they've earned the right to be. But they feel like an established power now, and
Mm-hmm.
so I'm rooting against them, and I'm rooting for TCU, the first year head coach with
Yeah.
the underdog quarterback who's tough as nails, and the
Yeah.
story. I'm rooting for the story of TCU right now, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
team I can see myself rooting for over Georgia, Ohio State, or Michigan. Like that's
Right.
the team that I can look at and be like, yeah, I want that team to win.
Yeah. Like you said, you nailed it, man. Max Duggan has been fun to watch this year. He's a phenomenal quarterback, just tough, man. And even their loss against Kansas State was a gutsy performance because they just got after him. And some of the play calling was a little suspect. And he just looked like during the game, there was tweet after tweet of, Peter Griffin laying in just a lump and saying, this is Max Duggan after every play right now, because for whatever reason, K-State game plan, play calling, whatever. They had a great plan for him, but it did not rule out what they had done the rest of the year.
Well, and Sonny Dykes took that game out of Duggan's hand at the end
Right.
when it
That's what I'm
mattered
getting at.
most. Yeah.
Right. And that was unfortunate to see because he was having such a great game. But I'm a fan of Sonny Dykes. He's a part of the Mike Leach coaching tree. They've already said they're going to wear some pirate flags in honor of him.
Right.
I'm going to do some stuff for that. But I mean, Duggan finished the year. He's a solid quarterback. He had 3,300 yards passing. He had 30 touchdowns, 4 picks. I mean, again, you could say the Big 12 defense isn't, much, but those are still great numbers. I feel like TCU has got a puncher's chance. Michigan, what they do well is they run the football. TCU has stopped the run fairly well.
So I've got
And
the stats pulled up on that if you wanna know the actual stats. So yards rushing per game, Michigan is rushing for 243 rushing yards per game.
but they're going to
And,
be missing Blake Corum, their number one stud running back.
right. And that matters, but their backup is
Not bad.
really good too. Uh
Yeah.
TCU gives up 150 rushing yards a game. So they're pretty stingy on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
they're not world beaters by any means, but they
Decent
do a good
defense.
job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they only allow 25 TCU only allows 25 points per game. Both
Mm-hmm.
teams stunning points per game for both teams. Michigan scores 40.1 points per game, TCU 40.3. The difference would be how much the defenses give up, and Michigan only has given up an average of 13.4 points per game to
Mm-hmm.
TCU's 25. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, defense wins championships, sure, but yeah, I think that's the case this time.
Yeah, I agree. These are two like pretty solid defenses, and so it'll be fun to watch and see what happens. Particularly, late in the game. In the first half, they're both going to be kind of feeling each other out. It's going to be like a boxing match with a lot of jabs and quick hits, just to see where they can get some soft, find some areas that they could capitalize. But in the second half, it's who makes those adjustments and shows up on defense.
So, do you have a pick for this game? Like, I think we both want TCU to win. Do you think TCU wins? I'll go first.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do. I think TCU wins. I think they have the toughness. They have the ability to control the football. Their defense is good enough to step up and make plays. Edwards is a great running back, but Corum was phenomenal this year for Michigan.
I think that what you just said about the ball control and the defense that TCU does well, Michigan does better. And so I think that Michigan wins the game ultimately. And I think what will be probably a 2.5 hour college football game, unless there's a lot of turnovers, which you
Right.
don't hear college football games lasting any less than 3 hours, 45 minutes to 4 hours these days.
Mm-hmm.
This has got the recipe to be a quick football game. And if
Mm-hmm.
so, I think it's because Michigan just kind of lays on them for a little while.
Yeah, and I don't know that I see that happening. TCU is tough. They're a spirited football team. They don't turn the ball over a lot, and neither does Michigan. TCU is averaging like 0.3 interceptions a game. Again, he only threw 4 this year. So I mean, it should be a good matchup. I think TCU has the dogs to beat them, and I've been the kiss of death all year, so that's probably what that's going to look like for the Horned Frogs. I apologize to TCU fans, but I think they get it done, man. I just like their quarterback, and I like Sonny Dykes and the direction he's taken that team so quickly. Yeah, I'll take TCU.
Okay. You're taking TCU money line. They are 7.5 point dog to
Mm-hmm.
Michigan. So I will. I think Michigan wins. I'm by no means rooting for it, and I hope I'm wrong. The next game, 7 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Ohio State and Georgia. Georgia just world beaters so far this year. They've lost a couple of close ones, but
Mm-hmm.
it's college football. Weird things happen. What matters is they came out
Yeah.
the other side with a win, and more times than not, very convincingly. So Georgia is -6 in this game to win $100 on a Georgia bet. You've got to bet $250 and a $205 bet for Ohio State. Uh, $100 bet for Ohio State would win you 205, and you would have to bet 250 to win 100 for Georgia. So, uh, pretty,
Yeah.
pretty. You got to put your money where your mouth is if you're going to bet Georgia on this one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to bet a
And
lot of money.
you said, they're 6.5.
6.
6.
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, yeah, it is 6. ESPN says the spread consensus pick, 75% of the money has been on Georgia -6.5. So I'm guessing that means the line has dropped.
That's the drop. They dropped it to 6 because too much money was coming in. What's the over under on it? Do you have that pulled up?
Give me a second.
Yeah, I'll kind of go while you look that
here
up.
it is. It's 62.
62. Yeah.
What seems low.
It does, but at the same time, in like historically, outside of an absolute rout, these games are fairly low scoring. It's usually defensive games just trying to figure each other out. So I've got the schedule pulled up, and my thoughts are: I think the team that is most comparable to Georgia that Ohio State played this year was Michigan, and they
that
lost.
did not go well.
Did not go well. They played Notre Dame early, and Notre Dame started off like they beat them 21-10, but Notre Dame finished the season well, but they did not start well.
No, they definitely had to take their training wheels off midseason.
The 3 ranked teams that they played, Notre Dame was 5th at the time, and that obviously that was way overranked. They worked their way back into the top 20, but they weren't the number 5 overall team this year. They beat Penn State, and that game was really close until late. They beat them 44-31, so they kind of pulled away a little bit late. And then they played Michigan, and they got just embarrassed. And so their toughest opponents, they did not play well. Versus Georgia. Georgia showed up in the big games, and they just decimated Oregon. They bullied Tennessee. They bullied LSU in the SEC championship game. Like the good teams that they played, they beat them just like they were playing Vanderbilt and Samford.
And repeat titles this year. It goes to note in the college football playoff, there's never been a repeat winner, and so maybe the bet is the field. I don't think it's Ohio State. I actually feel strongly about Georgia over Ohio State more than I feel Michigan over TCU, and maybe that's silly because CJ Stroud is still the quarterback. He's got he's passed for 3,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions on the year. He's been absolutely incredible. Team stat wise, Ohio State's putting up 44.5 points per game versus Georgia's defense, who's only allowing 12.8 points per game. But that also works the other way because Georgia's put up 39 points per game, and Ohio State only gives up 19.3 points per game. Georgia and Ohio State's offense in terms of yardage, Ohio State puts up 493 yards per game versus Georgia's 491. And Georgia, and they've both been relatively balanced in the high 200s. Ohio State 294 yards passing per game, 199 rushing. For Georgia, 285 passing yards per game versus 207 yards rushing. You're looking at balanced offenses and really good defenses, but I believe that Georgia's is just elite. Like, I mean, this is 85 Bears defense here.
Yeah.
Um, and Georgia has got the experience in this moment.
Hmm.
Um,
And they've got
say what
and
you want
they've got
about say what you want about Stetson Bennett, but he's done it before.
he's done it at the high school level, the junior college level, and now in the Division I level. So I mean, he's played really good football all throughout his career. I think the other thing they have for him is when I'm having a tough day and I can't get myself going, get myself motivated, I'll pull up that Kirby Smart Florida halftime speech. I'll pull up anything Kirby Smart says versus phenomenal motivator, great guy to rally the troops. Ryan Day, I don't believe in. I feel like he inherited like we've said on here before, he woke up on third, was born on third base and thought he hit a triple, right?
Well,
Um,
that's what a lot of Ohio State fans think. I don't
mhm.
necessarily believe that.
I don't
Uh,
know that he's quite the coach and the guy that Kirby Smart is. I think that he's going to have those guys ready to play football. This is only the second time Georgia and Ohio State have ever played. The last time was in
oh, really?
1993. 1993, Georgia won 21-14. The only other time they've played each other.
Um, yeah, my stance on bowl games is out the window when it comes to the playoff games because I
Mm-hmm.
don't believe it's who wants it more because I genuinely believe that if you're in this position, you want this more than you want anything in the world.
Right.
And so it's just I think Georgia's better. I think they're more
Mm-hmm.
seasoned. I know that they know how to win in these
Mm-hmm.
games. Like Michigan, I expect to do to TCU. I believe that Georgia has the ability and the talent to just sit on Ohio
Mm-hmm.
State for the majority of the game.
Right.
Um, they don't have to be flashy, and
Mm-hmm.
most times they're not
Mm-hmm.
offensively. They let Stetson Bennett play that AJ McCarron role, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to. He can stretch the field and surprise them some, but I believe it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust with a lot of play action,
Well, I
and
mean,
that's what they do so well.
when you have a guy like Brock Bowers, I mean, we haven't even mentioned his name yet. I mean, he's one of the best
Funny, I was going to bring him up. I mean,
one
he's
of the
going to be
best
a game breaker.
yeah, I mean, one of the best tight ends I've ever seen play. He plays it like a receiver. He's so good in space. And that's it, man. You run the ball effectively, you run a play action pass and get him on a 6, 7, 8 yard out and get him in space, and he can score in a heartbeat.
Right.
Um,
He is elite, and
mhm.
Georgia, no matter how many defensive players they lose in the draft every year, they've got that many coming up.
Jalen
And
Carter is unbelievable. I watched him against Mississippi State when he was in the game. I read this not all that long ago, and I could probably look it up to get the exact number, but we averaged about 2 to 3 yards less per play with Jalen Carter on the field because somebody that big, like he's like Jordan, he's not as big as Jordan Davis, but he's just infinitely quicker. But it's just as much of a game wrecker because he defends the run super well, because he occupies two blockers, he can
that's
pass
it.
rush. I mean, he's just so good.
He's Terrence Cody. Vince
Yep.
Wilfork never had huge sack numbers, but man,
Right.
you felt him.
He was
And
a disruptor.
as an Ole Miss fan, that's what Robert Kimdichie, who was the number one player in the
Mhm.
country coming in, and he
Mhm.
never put up the numbers because they didn't put him on the outside. They put
Right.
him in between the tackles, or in between the guards, and told him to just go make it life difficult.
And
And
that's
so
yeah, that's
that's
it.
what Carter does for Georgia as well.
And
And
once again, they've got two middle linebackers that can absolutely run, and so he
right,
can create havoc up front and let those guys run and make plays like they're supposed to do. They'll creep that strong safety up. Kirby Smart loves playing that safety close to the line of scrimmage because that's his background. I just think Georgia's defense is too tough. Even though, I mean, Ohio State has some playmakers. Marvin Harrison had 1,300 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 1,300 yards receiving this year. Had a great year, but Georgia's just got too many athletes.
yeah. Look at what they can do on the outside if Georgia's able to limit Marvin Harrison Jr. better because you don't have Njigba
Mhm.
on the opposite side.
Right.
You're able to maybe roll that safety over on to shade Harrison, and I know they've
Mhm.
got the guys.
Mhm.
They've got a stable of receivers. Just we'll see who if they are
Who
able
steps
to
up?
make a third option
Yeah.
available.
And then if Brock Bowers can't do it on offense, man, just give it to Darnell Washington. I mean, he's 6'7", 270 and runs like a 4'6", 4'7". That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's unfair, really. And so I I think it's safe to say are we both going Georgia on this one?
Yeah, this is pretty
Uh,
easy.
So you'll have if you're picking Georgia TCU in the final,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it'll go chalk. I think it'll be Georgia and Michigan.
Fair.
And I'll be honest with you, Georgia Michigan sounds like a heck of a lot of fun next week.
Yeah.
Or I guess it'll be week after next. They typically like the Monday night,
It's the
uh,
Monday. It'll be January the 9th. It'll be Monday the
second
9th.
Monday of
Mhm.
January typically.
Monday
And
the
so,
9th, and it'll give us a good time to talk about it next week and kind of dissect those matchups. I think either one, Georgia TCU, Georgia Michigan, would be a fun football game. I think Michigan would be more competitive against Georgia.
what do you
Um,
think the line would be in a Georgia TCU championship game?
I think it would start probably somewhere around 10.
Oh, I was going to go higher.
I
I
think
was
it'll
going to
probably
say
start around like 10, 10 and
12
a
and a
half.
half, 13.
Wow, that's bold, man.
Well, you've got the known quantity, and I think if it's at 10, people are going to hammer Georgia, and Vegas wants to have the same amount of bets on either side, and so they're going to make TCU fans bet that down.
I
And I
think a
don't
lot of
think
it,
that number is big enough to bet TCU. I don't think 10 is big enough to bet TCU.
maybe, but at the same time, like it depends on how that game goes tomorrow afternoon. If TCU comes out and just boat races
True,
Michigan,
true. Right.
then that's one thing. But if it's a close, if it's a close game, yeah, I think yeah, you're probably right. Somewhere in that 10 to 12 range is probably where it'll start. Depends on where the money starts coming in. They'll adjust it quickly, but I think if it's Michigan, it's probably no more than 4.5, maybe
Right.
5.
Yeah, I think that there's an obvious top two, and I said that
Mm-hmm.
going into this. Uh, I believe that Georgia and Michigan are the two best teams, and then there's a tier break. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the second tier past that, and that's where you got into TCU's and Ohio State, USC, whoever you want to fill
Mm-hmm.
in there. Uh, I just think that Michigan and Georgia are head and shoulders above everybody else, and we'll see. Uh,
Yep.
Certainly, I'd love to see TCU win the whole thing,
Yeah.
and I would
Sure.
cheer for them regardless. I just don't see it, and so we'll see. That's the thing about college football is a lot of times you're going to get some upsets. You just don't
Mhm.
typically see them here.
Yeah, you're right, but it's got to happen once, and that's why they play the game. And if anybody can do it, it's TCU. I think they're tough. As I said earlier, I just think we're in for a couple really good. I think tomorrow's going to be a good day of football.
And the 12-team playoff, I know it starts in 24, but that's the regular season 24 season, right? So it actually started in 25.
No, it starts at the end of the 24 season. So yeah,
Okay.
it would start. It would
So
start around New Year's or whenever they decide to start it
yeah,
at
what
24.
I'm getting at is this: we've got one more year of the 14
Mhm.
playoff before we
Right.
get to the 12 team. Okay.
Yeah, and they solidified that because if they didn't, like I think they showed they'd miss out on like $450 million in revenue if they didn't get it done. So they solidified it for 24.
Yeah. I'm excited for the 12-team playoff. The rest of the bowl games, I don't even care if you televise them at that point. Um, we'll hit this because our mutual friend and good buddy Lauren Massey, the only fan of the Illinois Fighting Illini that I know,
Mm-hmm.
uh, sent us a text message in a group thread, told us to talk about it on the podcast.
Yep.
Former four-star quarterback, Starkville High School alumni,
Mm-hmm.
and Ole Miss player Luke Altmaier has entered the transfer portal and has said that he's going to Illinois. I think that Lauren should be really excited about this. Uh,
Yeah, he's a good player.
my scouting report on Luke Altmaier is that he is a really good quarterback. I don't know that he would have made it at an SEC level because whereas he's got the feet to get out and move in the pocket, he's never really shown to be the guy that has elite
Mm-hmm.
athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
But he's a very cerebral quarterback who makes good decisions, and I think he'd be really good for Illinois. And I
Yeah.
wish that he was probably had an off season to prepare for this Mississippi State game because I'd really love to cheer for him against State next week.
Well, you never know what'll work out, but yeah, shout out to Lauren doing some field reporting for us there. He's actually down for the game right now, and him
Oh
and his
yeah,
he sent me a picture that I'm going to put on our social medias here in a minute. Give him a shout out of them
yeah.
enjoying some of the local sites there, and we may have to get a live report from him sometime in the not so distant future.
That's you should go down. You should go down to Tampa
Yeah, it's not
and
that far.
meet up with Lauren, and then the two of you guys can get get in with me on a Skype call afterwards, and we can record it for a post game recap of the what is it? The Gasparilla Bowl? What is it? The
ReliaQuest former Outback, the ReliaQuest Bowl.
ReliaQuest. What does ReliaQuest as a company do, Rusty?
If I had to guess, it was something with either auto parts or mortgages. That's probably about as boring as it gets.
I'm going to say that they are space fighters, much like Galaxy Quest.
Well,
they are the most reliable space fighters of all time.
You're close. You're actually probably closer than I am. They are a computer security software, so they're fighting viruses and aliens on your computer, I guess.
Huh. Okay. Well, they could probably lock down all these people that call me 18 times a day trying to sell me warranties on the cars that they think I have.
There it is.
So, well, all right, Rusty. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do this. It's fun being able to instead of catching a whole week, catch what's coming up next. Really being able to sit down on topics. Maybe something we look at a little bit more often.
Yeah, for
big things.
Yeah, be following our social medias. The number 2 Buck Sports Pod on Instagram and Twitter. We may do some more special breaking episodes like this for big games, big sports breaking news, because this has been a lot of fun, and nothing else. We get to just sit and chat a little bit. Talking about sports is always a good time.
Yeah, and feel free to share it with your friends too. If I had the ability, like YouTube, if you refer a friend, you get $50 for YouTube TV. If I had the funds to, what could we give our listeners if they could prove that they referred a friend who subscribed to our Spotify channel?
I think we could probably get a bunch of stickers pretty cheap. We might at least get like a water bottle or a Mac, a computer sticker to start.
I'm thinking more along the lines of a shout out.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll get our logo out there, man. It may help, or you never know when they come down the pipe.
I'll start a Cameo channel, and I will send out personalized thank you notes, and also congratulate you on your weddings or birthdays.
Exactly.
If you refer a friend. And so just send the receipts to 2 Buck Sports Pod on Twitter or Instagram. Just slide in our DMs. And also, like Rusty said, please like and subscribe. But also, turn on your notifications too on I'm sorry, not Snapchat. We're not doing that. We're too old. On Instagram, we're almost too old for Instagram. Turn on your notifications for live videos on Instagram, because it is something we've talked about doing for big games, doing a post-game live stream on Instagram, just kind of what we're thinking at the time. If we can get that together, we really want to start doing that. So turn on your notifications. Thank you guys for listening. Like, rate, subscribe, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars.
There it is. Yeah. Like Uncle Buck said, thanks for being here, guys. I hope that everybody has a happy new year and that 2023 is your best year yet. We'll see y'all next year for our first podcast of the year.
Hey, does this mean we've been doing a podcast for 2 years now, since we've spanned 2 years?
Hey, we're internationally known. We're a 2-year podcast. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So whatever makes us look good, that's what we're going to do.
That's right. All right, guys. See y'all next week.
All right. Bye, guys. Happy New Year.